We're gathered here today in this sacred place to remember and bid our friend Theodore, somehow it doesn't seem right, Ted, a goodbye. I first met Ted in 1997. I was a newly ordained priest, and I was fortunate that there were 4 clergy here at Christ Church at the time. And so the Bishop Spong, it happened to be, said, Len Freeman will be your mentor. And so I was here every single Wednesday, meeting with the staff, listening to what they were doing and how they were doing it, and meeting some of you, I'm imagining, although I've changed a bit since I was here all those years ago. And so it was that I think I met Ted in an adult ed session over in the parish hall, just steps from here. And at that time, Ted was the senior warden in this place. That's the one who, well, in so many ways, the buck stops here. They were the primary support for the clergy, especially the rector. They were the rector's confidant. They were the rector's business manager. They were the rector's friend. And so as that year wrapped up, well, we all know what happens in our lives early in the next year. It was tax time, and all 4 of the clergy said, you have no choice, go see Ted. I have to tell you, there are clergy scattered all over these United States who have used Ted as their accountant, or many of them still do. Well, Jennifer knows, they email, or they mail, or they deliver, or they show up at Ted's office. Now, I don't know about the rest of them, but I'm certain for Bowie and myself, every time I walked in, after I was greeted by whichever dog was in the family at that point in time at the front door, and careful to watch the note, dog inside, do not let him out, that I would walk around the corner and take an empty seat, if there was one, and wait until it was my turn. And Ted would walk to the door of his office, and the biggest smile on his face would erupt. No other way to say it. And he would hug me and welcome me into his office. It's so hard to imagine a young boy growing up in Greece all those years ago and coming to this country with his father's second trip to the United States. It's not hard, though, for me to imagine that he wished once upon a time to be a priest, a Greek Orthodox priest. And so it was that through 2 colleges of education, he was on his way to becoming, dare I say it, a lawyer. And he did everything but pass the bar. Because you see, he and a friend, a partner, had bought this accounting practice. And so Ted's life became full with doing our tax returns, keeping us on the straight and narrow. At least for me, reminding me almost every year, last year we took this, and you forgot to tell me how much you needed this year. And of course, in the middle of our session together, after caller ID became a thing, he would watch and see who was calling on the phone. And he would usually yell, "Jennifer, tell them I'll call them back." Because his focus was whoever was with him at the time. And so I can imagine him as a Greek Orthodox priest, or maybe a Lutheran minister, or even maybe an Episcopal priest. You see, he wasn't just my accountant, and I'm imagining he was not just your accountant. He was a friend. He was a confidant. He was willing to spend time in the midst of his crazy tax season listening to what was going on in our lives and to ask us, how's this going? What's happening here? Are you doing okay? And of course, as I got to know Ted, those questions I would feed back to him. Now, I could check with Jennifer to tell me the truth, but Ted would give me pretty honest answers about what was going on in his life. And so it was that this young man of Greek descent, this young man who came to this country at 3, in the midst of high school in this country, where, by the way, he was class president all 4 years, he met a young woman that he became, well, interested in. Is that an okay word? And so it was that all through high school, Inessa knew where she could find Ted, because he'd be in class or he'd be doing something class presidents were called to do. And so they headed off to their independent universities, but kept in touch. And after graduating, they did what, well, people of my generation often didn't do. They married each other. 59 years. Imagine, in this day and age, 59 days is a long time to be married, let alone 59 years. And if you were sitting in Ted's office and you would ask, how's Inessa? You'd get the whole story. She's doing wonderfully. She's the love of my life. I adore her. You know, you almost wanted a court to stop these wonderful things coming out of his mouth.
It didn't stop for 49 years, or 59 years. It kept,
That's true.
It continued.
It did not stop, as Jennifer reminded me, for 59 years. It reminded me a little bit of Bishop Spong after he remarried. And constantly, this is the most beautiful woman in the world. And if Ted was around Inessa, you could see. You didn't have to hear. You could see the love in his eyes. You could see the physical reaction to being close to Inessa. The love just poured out. And then, years later, they were blessed to adopt a child. A child who, well, she's not a child anymore. But I think Ted always thought of her as a loving, childish daughter. He took care of her. That was his purpose in life. Well, I might have thought, you might have thought it was doing our taxes. It was earning enough to take care of these 2 lovely women and later 3 grandsons. And so it was that the Ted I knew became more what I think he was to many of us, a friend, not just an accountant. We made that trip down Springfield Avenue, well, I did anyway, every spring to see him, including 13 years when I was in Connecticut. There was nobody else that was going to touch my taxes. Ted knew what to do, what to ask, what to look for, what to say, this is missing. Well, let's just guess. Last year it was this, the year before it was this. We can probably guess it was about the same. And so the family grew to 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. Ted was an amazing man. I don't need to tell you that. You know that. You lived it as you lived with Ted. I told you about being here for staff meetings. In Diana Beach, that I'm imagining some of you might remember, one of the associate clergy here, had a party at her Jersey City townhouse. And I said, who's coming? Well, Ted, of course, and Inessa. And so I had an opportunity to meet the two of them together, to witness that love that lasted well beyond 59 years. It's still going today. Ted could do almost anything and was willing to do almost anything for any of us. In talking to Inessa, she said, you know, he was really more a social worker than an accountant. That was sort of his vocation, but his avocation was taking care of all of us. Seeing to it that things were done right. Seeing to it that we knew we were cared for as he cared for Inessa and Jennifer and the boys. As Inessa and I were talking, I found out some things, though, that I didn't know about Ted. That he owned a restaurant at one point in time. Now, I don't know when he managed to do it, but he did it. And I've forgotten where it was.
Secaucus.
Secaucus. Should have known. He also loaned friends money. And at least in one instance, despite having a handshake to confirm it as the contract, had lost every penny he had loaned the friend. Ted also took care of so many of his clients in ways that, fortunately, I didn't need. He would do their taxes for free, as he certainly did all of his clergy. He would help them in ways that we can only begin to imagine. One lady whose sister died, who had been taking care of everything for the family, came to Ted saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to pay a bill. I don't know how to write a check. And Ted took her under his arm and personally paid those bills and wrote those checks. I remember the days before COVID as well, when that waiting room was packed overflowing. There was not an empty chair there. And I could tell as I brought in my sheet of papers, and those around me had 2 or 3 sheets, that this was a job of love, not a job to earn money at. although fortunately he did a little bit of that too. So we're here today to celebrate the life of a man that leaves a big hole in my heart. That leaves a big hole in this parish where he was on the vestry, where he was treasurer, where he was senior warden. You name it. If Christ Church needed it, he would do it. This was his spiritual home as well. A place where he could come and be surrounded by the love of God and the love of his fellow parishioners here. I remember, I think about a year ago, Bowie, I'm not sure, coming to an evensong. Vanessa was not able to get around so well, and Ted, though, was here, sitting 2 rows in front of me. And I don't know who was more surprised, I that he was sitting here, or he that I was sitting here. That's the way he was. He just was a presence in this place, this holy place. In a little while, we're going to have the first of 2 incredible feasts. The first one is not my feast, it's not Bowie's feast, it's not even a feast of Christ Church, it is the Lord's feast at the Lord's table. And we, as brothers and sisters of Ted, will be invited to that. Later on, there will be another feast, a feast in which hopefully you'll be able to share your stories of Ted, to tell us the way he made you feel when you were in his presence, for you to share the stories that he shared about Jennifer or Inessa or the boys or, well, the dogs. Dare we forget the dogs? You all did know, I'm sure, that Vanessa's wedding present from Ted was a German Shepherd. Their first present, their first dog together, because he knew Vanessa loved dogs, and he knew that she needed a dog in her life, beyond and besides Ted, someone to share love with. And so that string of dogs, those of you who've been in the office, have been greeted by any number of them. I don't think I managed to make it to all 7, but they were there. And they were wonderful. And Ted loved them. And the other shout to the office next door was, "Jennifer, can you take the dog for a walk?" We don't need a walk today, thank goodness. But we need to remember Ted. To remember the love that flowed from him. A love that came from his love of Jesus Christ and serving God in all ways. A love that worked in this place, even though it wasn't Greek Orthodox. A love that was so strong that it drew Inessa from the Lutheran Church to the Episcopal Church. A love that bonded them and the family in this place. And so, unfortunately, at the first feast, we'd prefer you not talk. But the second feast, please share those stories. Share your knowledge of love. Share, if you're willing, your love of this man who was incredible, whose life overflowed with love, not just for his family. We all should have that love, but a love for this place, a love for the clergy in this place, a love, I guess, even for the organist choir master in this place, a love for those who were his brothers and sisters. Share the love.